Really lovely to see everybody. Um, so just to give you a little bit of background, I'm Claire. Up until yesterday, I was a government scientist, but um, I felt so concerned about what sort of particularly sort of biodiversity um, that I'm now devoting my time entirely to nature connection and sort of helping with sort of restoring habitats and sort of those kinds of actions. And so, yeah, for me, I trained as a nature connection guide, and have seen how it really particularly helps people. Sort of really supportive. So there's lots of great benefits in terms of lowering blood pressure and um, sort of helping very much with mental health. I've sort of experienced that personally and sort of witnessed that for other people. But it also, I feel, is very much at the core of many of the crises that we're facing. And this kind of disconnect from nature and this kind of sense of being sort of separate. And so that felt like a place where I could really sort of work and do something. So it's really those sort of those two aspects that have kind of brought me to sharing nature connection. Um, so what it is. It's actually far more than just kind of contact with nature. So it's kind of more than just walking the dog or jogging in the park. It's about really sort of slowing down and being sort of mindful and noticing. And it's sort of connecting through the senses. It's through the emotions, through a sense of awe and wonder, noticing the beauty. Perhaps getting a little bit creative, doing painting or poetry, or finding your inner Wordsworth, um, and being compassionate as well. So taking care of nature is, and that we are nature, so that's taking care of ourselves too. But really, kind of coming to understand ourselves as nature, as from a sort of experiential point of view. So really experiencing ourselves as nature. Um, so what I normally do, I do run online sessions sort of once a month. But what I normally do, whether for sort of indoors or outdoors, is just to start with a practice, just to help us kind of move from headspace sort of into our bodies and into sort of connection with nature. So yeah, just inviting you just to get comfortable wherever you are. You're welcome to have your video on or off. I will have my eyes closed, but my video on through this. So just because I find that helps me to find that connection more easily. So yeah, just finding whatever works for you really. If you want to close your eyes, then feel free to do so if that's helpful. And yeah, just let's take a moment just to be compassionate to our bodies, just noticing our bodies and sort of what would be kind to them in this moment. What posture is helpful and supportive. Just feeling that, just exploring it perhaps. Just a moment just to be kind to ourselves. And then maybe just a sense of just inviting a sense of arriving, just being in this moment, in this body, here with all of us in our circle, just arriving here in this moment. And lovely to be able to share this together this time, and the nature around us, each of us bringing in our own the space that we're in, um, to join our circle. And so from here, perhaps just bringing the attention down to your connection with the earth. So that might be your feet on the floor, or it might be your body resting on whatever surface you're resting on. Or you might like to just tune in to the experience of that feeling of gravity, your connection with this physical connection with the earth. It's always there, whether you're at the top of a tall block of flats or out with your feet on the soil. Just just noticing the physical sensations at the moment, just tuning into that. So you might be noticing the ground pressing against your feet or the chair. You're just getting curious as though you were feeling this for the first time. Just noticing what's here now. It's getting a sense of being held and supported by the earth, by this whole planet underneath you. Just holding and supporting you at all times and in everything you do. Just feeling that connection and that support. And then if you'd like to, you could even perhaps just offer a little bit more of your weight over to the earth. Just allow yourself to be supported even more, just relaxing into it. Nothing you need to do or change or everything just for this moment, just allowing yourself to be supported. And just knowing that you can come back to this at any time, at any point in the session or in the wider day or your week or month ahead, that you can take a moment just to feel into this connection with the earth and this sense of being held and supported. And maybe just as you're doing this, you might notice the breath moving in and out of your body, noticing the physical sensations at the nostrils or how the breath moves your body, the air traveling into your lungs, moving into the belly, wherever it's present for you, just noticing that, just noticing what that feels like. Perhaps just reflecting that you're experiencing this perfect process of nature right now. This is your body being breathed, nothing to control or change, just allowing it to ebb and flow completely naturally. And just noticing that this is one of the many ways you can experience yourself as nature, but also that the oxygen that you're breathing in come from the trees and the plants, the algae. So with every in-breath, you're gifted this oxygen from wider nature. And with every out-breath, you're giving back the carbon dioxide that they need to make their food. So perhaps just taking a moment just to feel this connection between yourself and the wider nature through this exchange, this giving and receiving. Perhaps just noticing with the in-breath, is there a sense of your body being nourished? Maybe with the out-breath, there's a sense of release, sense of letting go, anything that's not serving you in this moment. Perhaps it's useful elsewhere. Maybe then just widening that to perhaps a sense of the whole body being breathed. You could imagine that the Oxygen's traveling all the way down to your toes, to the tips of your fingers, top of your head. Just imagining that your whole body now is being breathed, just becoming aware of the whole body. And maybe this is a moment just to pause, just to set an intention, maybe an intention for the session or an intention for Earth Day, um, or really whatever you'd like to set an intention for. Might be just to show yourself some kindness, or in supporting wider community, or just being present and mindful, or letting go of to-do lists for the session. Really anything that speaks to you in this moment. And then we're going to maybe hold that intention very lightly, not focusing too much on it, just knowing that we've kind of dropped it like a pebble in a lake to send out its ripples. And that we don't need to worry too much about making it happen, just that it's there as an intention that we have. And then we're going to move into the next moments, just going very mindfully from this practice back into the wider Zoom call. So just perhaps widening your awareness in your own time into the wider space. You might want to come back to noticing your feet on the floor or your body on the chair. Just transitioning in whatever way you'd like to, very consciously, perhaps opening your eyes at a moment that feels right for you. And whenever you're ready, joining back on the screen. Um, and with each of the practices, there's an invitation if anybody would like to share anything that they noticed. You can do that either in the chat or by or verbally. Part of the experience of nature connection in a group is it's really rich, sort of sharing and hearing other people share about their experiences of the practice. But there's absolutely no pressure if you don't want to share. That's absolutely fine.
Quiet so far, Claire.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I'll move us into the next practice, the much anticipated, I'm sure, connecting with a nature friend. So this could be, as I sort of mentioned, it could be a pot plant, or something maybe that you can see through from the window, or even a pet if you've got a willing pet. I always, even with plants, or sort of less animate nature, um, I actually ask for permission. And obviously that's particularly true of pets. I was just thinking about my children bothering the dog. They're not necessarily always willing participants, and it's always it's always good to honor that. And so I'm going to, in case anybody doesn't have a nature friend nearby as well, all the practices I participate in myself. But what I will do is I'll turn my camera around so that you can see the sort of nature friends who are present here with me. If I can work out how to do that, I might not be able to. I might have to physically turn my camera around. Okay, so yes, so just getting yourself ready with whichever you are connecting with. I'm going to choose dandelion. So I think We also have the red dead nettle. So I think these are two species that I noticed that we could connect with at Pensford Field. So, but the dandelion particularly is calling to me today. Um, so, um, yeah, I think that maybe this is there's a kind of moment here of um, kind of approach, and yeah, that sort of we don't necessarily, particularly when we make human contacts, don't necessarily formally ask for permission to connect, but there's a kind of there's a moment where you're sort of exploring whether it's okay, and sort of making some kind of greeting, and so yeah, just really maybe bringing some of that quality to this, that we're moving away from that kind of dominance over nature into a more sort of reciprocal, and yeah, much the same way as we would honor the space of a human person. So yeah, just um, just making that approach in whatever way feels right for you, and then perhaps our dominant sense tends to be vision. And perhaps that's a place to start, is just sort of noticing with the eyes, and just noticing perhaps where you're first drawn to. It's really easy to get drawn to the flowers. So with plants, if there's a flower in bloom, that maybe is the most obvious part. Um, but then perhaps as we're looking, maybe taking in the whole of this friend, just noticing other parts, not just the place where we're first drawn to. Perhaps noticing any colours, any different shades of the same colour, with any light and shade. Just noticing any textures, maybe just getting a sense of the energy or the quality, the sense of whether there's a sort of welcoming quality, a sort of open, generous quality, or whether there's more guarded quality. Just just noticing that, um, connecting in with how this sort of nature friend makes you feel. Just noticing how the colours make you feel. And there's a stage in their life cycle that you're able to detect by looking, perhaps just noticing that. Maybe noticing what's happening for them right now. Are they blooming? Are they more relaxed and restful, or very active? Just noticing where they are in their sort of general sort of stage of life just on this day. Um, these dandelions actually were all closed up earlier when the sun was in, and it'd been quite wet. So it changes even moment by moment. And then if it's appropriate, maybe noticing if there's any sounds associated with this nature friend. Maybe that's more present with animal friends. Um, but it might be appropriate. You might want to, if it's safe to do so, to run your hands over parts of the plant or just notice both the feeling and the sound associated with it, if there is any sound. So yes, just then if it's appropriate, just getting in touch with a sense of touch. And with all of this, there's obviously what we're witnessing with our nature friend, but there's also what we're witnessing in ourselves. You know, this is an interaction. This is us meeting them and what happens in our own bodies, in our own heart space. Um, so really noticing that too, that this is a very much a meeting and a connection. Just exploring that. And it's really an opportunity to notice things that you may never have noticed before, to really look with what they call a beginner's mind, as though you'd never seen a dandelion or a cat or whatever um, may be. Just imagining maybe as a baby or an alien might, how it would be. Is there anything that tells you that this is a living being? Um, or whether there's anything that tells you whether they're friendly or not friendly. And if it's appropriate, and bearing in mind that, I mean, it's not something we would do with human friends generally, um, that if you want to see whether there's any kind of smell for your nature friend, noticing any scent. That's just reflecting that this is something that dogs will do very happily, and that it's certainly a way that plants really communicate with us, with their scents, that they can, turn your head as you walk down the street, um, wonder where the wonderful smell comes from someone's garden. Uh, and then finally, just inviting maybe a sense of appreciation or gratitude to this friend, and just reflecting on, what they mean to you, and what they're offering in this moment. Maybe considering whether there's anything that we can offer in return. Um, Perhaps a pot plant might like some water, or um, a less drafty spot, or something. Just noticing whatever feels appropriate to you, if there is anything. And then just in your own time, just taking your leave of this really close connection and coming back to the Zoom call. And again, very welcome to share anything that you experienced from that, or anything you noticed with that practice.
If anybody wants to share in the chat, I can read it out to Claire.
Thank you.
I think we're okay to move on.
Yeah, yeah. No, that sounds good. Righto. Um, yeah, okay. So yeah, this next practice um was I used to work on a rare breeds farm many years ago, and there the animals were definitely very much more friends than a part of a kind of farm business. Um, and but the lady I worked for was uh, uh, really able to detect the weather in a way that amazed me. She could tell you that it was going to rain in 45 minutes' time. And at the time, it seemed really magical. I had absolutely no idea how she did this. But that's because I was very disconnected from my body, and spent much more time indoors at that time than, she'd spent a lifetime working outdoors on this farm. Um, and so this practice just helps to sort of start to just tune back into that. So yeah, I find it quite helpful, just moving between closed eyes and opened eyes. And um, it's called the weather station, and it works indoors as well as outdoors. But I would encourage you, if you're trying it indoors, to kind of get to feel it indoors. I mean, it's really good if you've got a window open, because then you've got the indoor and outdoor weather. But yeah, then to maybe take it outdoors and try it out in all different weathers and different times of the day, and so on. So yeah, just inviting you again to get comfortable, and then perhaps just noticing the feeling of the air on your skin, just wherever you feel that. And just maybe noticing the temperature of the air. And here we're really noticing the feeling rather than getting too caught up with labels at the moment. Just actually noticing that felt experience. We've got something like 30 different senses, and two of them at least are about detecting sort of hot and cold. So just noticing what that feeling is of noticing the air temperature. And you might notice any movement of the air. And perhaps you're also able to pick up the humidity. Maybe this is a different sense, just whether the air's dry or wet or somewhere in between. That's just taking a moment to notice where you're feeling this on your body. Where are you going to to answer those questions? Maybe seeing if it's different on different parts of your body. Perhaps it's different on your face, to your hands, for instance. Or noticing how much it's accessible in the areas that are covered by clothes. but just bringing sort of curiosity to it without any judgment or labeling, just exploring, maybe even being a little bit playful with it. So perhaps just noticing if there's any movement of the air or any stillness, noticing if it's the same in different places, same as with the temperature. Maybe noticing whether the temperature, the humidity, the movement of the air, it's all those things combined that you're experiencing rather than it being a sense of one of them, noticing how perhaps it changes over time as well. Then maybe noticing any sense of light or dark, maybe noticing if the light's diffuse or if it's coming from a particular direction. Perhaps noticing if you can feel the warmth of the sun on one side, with the temperature corresponding with the light if it's from one direction. Just noticing if that's different to a side which is maybe not so bright. And perhaps just seeing if you can get a sense of, if you didn't know, what season we're in. What season does it feel like where you are right now? Just answering that question just from these felt experiences, not from any knowledge or logic. Starting to make those connections between your felt experience. Maybe you can get a sense of the time of day. Just what clues are there for what time of day it is. And these are all things you can explore after the session at different times. It's really kind of practicing that muscle of letting your senses tell you what things are like, what season, what time of day. It's really getting into those less mind driven ways of knowing the world. And then, if your eyes have been closed, maybe opening them and seeing whether what you can witness just looking around visually matches with that felt experience. If there are any clouds, maybe noticing those and watching clouds is a practice in itself. It's wonderful patterns. It's really good just to have this very open awareness, not to be analyzing, but just looking. But if you can't see any clouds, that's okay. There's no view from a window. That's just getting a sense of how the room is, and whether there are any clues about your felt experience from what you can see. And then whenever you're ready, just rejoining the Zoom call, a circle. Again, very welcome to share if you'd like to, either in the chat or verbally. Um, I love to get out at dawn and dusk. They're very, very special times of the day. They have their own real quality, and doing that practice at those sorts of times on a regular basis is a really nice way to start to yeah, just gently sort of learn these patterns and yeah, just I mean, and that with that, actually at those times of day, noticing as well the other senses, kind of the smells particularly, and the way the sound qualities change. So yeah, just kind of adding that into that practice as an invitation there. So we've got yeah, another practice which is really centered around I've called it compassion, gratitude, and service. And so when in the sessions that I guide, there are kind of two core parts. One of them is about just bringing ourselves into a sort of different way of being in the world, away from that sort of what they call executive mode, where we're kind of doing the thinking, problem solving, and those sorts of things at the start, and then at the end. This kind of idea of reciprocity and but it flows both ways, so it's yeah, I find it really really um valuable to always make space for that. um so yeah, just settling in again, and um perhaps just noticing again your connection with the earth, just noticing your feet on the floor or the surface that you're resting on. Maybe just bringing a sense of, um, yeah, if it feels right for you, just a sense of appreciation or gratitude for our Earth, for our planet, for our home. Maybe a sense of gratitude for the trees and the plants providing this oxygen. Maybe just allowing then anything, just something to come to you that you particularly appreciate in nature. If it's a particular place that's special to you, a particular animal or plant, tree, maybe there's a list of them. Hopefully, there's a list of them. That you can just take a moment just to appreciate all those special places we have around us, and all the special wildlife, and yeah, just you might even imagine just feeling that gratitude within your heart space, and then perhaps sending it out. If you could send it out as a warmth or some kind of energy, just imagining or maybe visualizing that. Perhaps noticing as you do this that that feeling is almost like you're bathing in it, that as you express that gratitude to the other, so it's there for you too. Maybe it's a good moment actually to feel gratitude for ourselves, but also there's a gratitude for everybody being here today, everybody sharing this connection on Earth Day, and at other times too, just being part of our community. So just sending gratitude to each of you, making this possible and sharing space today. That is also a chance just to send compassion to wherever it's needed, to ourselves, to our wild friends, to one another. Again, just visualizing that flowing to wherever it can be of most help in this moment. And then again, just maybe coming back to that connection with the earth, coming back to the sense of being supported and just widening the awareness into your wider space. Just noticing what's around you. And before coming back to the Zoom call. I always I like this is the sort of aspect of the reciprocity. So as well as the compassion and gratitude practice, which in itself uh, is a form of reciprocity, and also appreciation. I think this is often overlooked. A huge part of um, the importance of nature connection and sort of how that works in helping us to connect with and protect sort of wildlife and spaces. Um, is around actually noticing and appreciating and not taking for granted, and so that's a real gift that we can give. But there's always that invitation, if you'd like to take that service, just to take a moment now just to consider whether there's anything that you would like to do in kind of giving service to our sort of wider nature, um, whether it be sort of litter picking or becoming a friend of Pensford Field, or sort of protesting or any of those kinds of things. Um, so yeah, or helping cue the transition. Um, always these are very much invitations, but just creating the space to contemplate. And so yeah, just again, I'll just make a brief space if anybody does want to share anything from any of those practices. You're very welcome to. Um,
I think you've made us all very calm and still, Claire.
Excellent. That's clear. Thank you. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I love sharing nature connection, and the only way I can do that is by having people to share it with. And thank you really warmly for joining me in those practices. And so the plan is we'll transition in a minute with the sort of comfort break to sort of section more on wildlife gardening. I have what hopefully is a sort of fun, sort of interactive, and just some maybe sort of things that I've learned over the past few years about sort of wildlife gardening, and how it's really helpful in all sorts of ways. Um, but yeah, and the nature connection part of it is really valuable. I mean, I suppose one of the things is it actually creates a wonderful space. In even if it's a sort of window box on a balcony with wildflowers, um, or a few other suggestions that I have. That that's a way of connecting, or in a community space. But also, I encourage people to actually connect with local nature and understand the sort of local spaces that you're connecting with, who lives there, what are the plants, what are the animals, because that connection really informs and shapes what's most useful in a wildlife garden. So exotic, non-native kind of palm trees and what have you, are less useful to our native wildlife. So it's kind of, what plants are the bees visiting? Just where do the birds like to be? And those sorts of things. Just kind of getting to know, and that connection with the weather. It's what how it's becoming harder and harder um, to sort of relate a season to a particular type of weather because of climate change. And so actually we can be really responsive by feeling into, how does this actually feel at the moment? What season does this feel like? And from that, then how can I nurture the plants and things in the garden? Yeah, that's one of the ways that nature connection I find really fits in with wildlife gardening, that the two things really go together. Anyway, I shall let you go for a comfort break, stretch your legs, and I'll go and get set up indoors with the laptop. So yeah, thank you.